Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Coffee with Carl. I'm your host, Carl Zoellner, one of the attorneys here with Anderson Business Advisors. Today, I want to talk a little bit about funding your business entity. In a previous video, I talked a little bit about funding your land trust, so there is going to be some similarities there. However, when I look at funding a business entity, usually what we talk about is funding with either equity or debt. So there's a few different ways to fund your business entity. We're going to go through those quickly and sort of just touch on the basics so that way we're all on the same page. This is going to be a little bit more, well, it's not going to be more skewed. I'll just talk about the different ways we fund our business entity. So number one is if I'm funding my entity, I can fund it with either cash or assets. Normally, if I'm funding it with assets, from, say, a trading perspective, that would be a stock portfolio. From real estate investing, that I could be funding it with a property I've already purchased as an individual. The other way is to fund it with cash. The cash is where we get into or most commonly get into the difference between equity and debt funding. When we fund with equity, it's meaning I'm just putting cash into my business. The downside of that is that if that business gets sued, that cash would then be available to creditors. If I'm funding it with debt, it means I'm lending money to my business. And if that business was to be sued, in most cases, if I've done things at arm's length and it was commercially reasonable, I should be my business's first creditor. So, meaning my debt on that business or my personal loan to that business should not be available to my creditor if, say, I get sued or if there's a debt on the business. So the idea being there is that's a nice way to sort of protect money. If you're going to be putting, say, a large portion of cash into your business, you can loan that larger chunk of the money. Now, opinions differ on how you should fund a business entity. Some people think it's better with all debt or all equity. I tend to fall somewhere in the middle. I like to put a little bit of cash in, and then the rest of it is debt. I want there to be at least enough cash to cover my liabilities, but then I want to also protect that amount of cash I'm putting in. So let's talk about this. So say if I was going to add $100,000 to a business entity to fund it, or say fund it for a specific deal, I'm going to probably put about 10 grand in as cash, 90 as debt. That way I protect the 90, but there's also the entity is adequately funded, which becomes one of the factors when, say, a court's looking to or a plaintiff is trying to pierce the veil of your business. So my preference is to do the blended funding, and you can scale those numbers up and down as appropriate. I just used 100,000 because it's a nice round number, and on average, that may be what you're paying for, say, a rental property or the purchase price for, say, a flip property, something like that. So if you have any additional questions, as always, please feel free to reach out. Happy to have a consultation with you. If you haven't attended one of our 3-day classes, please call in. Happy to have you, like having you. And the real value here is, yes, we put out a ton of free content and a bunch of educational material, but it is sort of a broad perspective. It's more important to actually sit down and have that one-on-one conversation so we can draw you out a wealth planning blueprint or a visual depiction of what you're doing so that you can get the individual benefit from the experience and knowledge we have here at Anderson Business Advisors. So until next time, it's been great. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Coffee with Carl, and we will catch you on the next go-around.